How about Ohio State? How about the Buckeyes, man? Because you look at what they have ahead of them, and I mean, like, dude, this path is absolutely brutal. If you're an Ohio State fan, you're sitting there in October, early November, you're like, hey, listen, worst case scenario, we're the 5 seed, maybe the 6 seed. Okay, so we're playing probably the 12 seed or the 11 seed in the first round, and then we get, the Big 12 champ in the second round or what have you. Life comes at you fast, and the Michigan game just turned the entire college football playoff path for Ohio State on its head. Now Ohio State is sitting there at number 8 when it comes to the seedings. You're hosting Tennessee the first round of the college football playoff, and what do you get if you win? A rematch with the number 1 seed Oregon Ducks, who already got you one time. And then potentially if you win that game, you end up playing Texas. So, it's very obvious when you look at this bracket which side you want to be on. Ohio State did not want to be on this side based on how the seeding shook out. But I think it's actually interesting when you look at what this could mean for Ohio State. Because to win a national championship, which, make no mistake about it, that is the standard at Ohio State. Even with the loss to Oregon, even with the loss to Michigan, the price of admission does not change for that Ohio State logo, all right? They will play the two, likely, again, this is if the seeding were to hold, it is likely that Ohio State would have to be the teams with the top 2 odds to win the national championship. Translation, it's the Hunger Games. And I would also add this, it's almost tougher for Ohio State that they have to play at home in round 1, which sounds bizarre, but Kirk Herbstreit said this during the playoff ranking reveal broadcast, and I would 100% agree. If things don't go great that first drive for Ohio State against Tennessee, or if in the first half Ohio State's down 3-10, or if it's just unimpressive in any way, you know how quick the folks in Columbus will be to boo Ryan Day and to boo that operation? The advantage of home field is supposed to be the positive vibes, the momentum, the inertia, the energy. That's not going to exist after the Michigan loss if things don't look good early. So even that's a little bit volatile. I wonder if you're Ohio State, you'd rather maybe get on the road and play somewhere else. I digress. The bottom line here is there's no safety net for Ohio State. None. You hear some extreme takes of hey, if they lose round 1, I'd fire them on the tarmac. I don't know that's that far off. The standard is so high at Ohio State. If you lose in the first round at home after the loss to Michigan, I think that's probably a reality. And that's not me calling for that. We've said multiple times, I would not fire Ryan Day, even if you lose in the first round. I don't think you do that. His resume is too good. He's won too much. I think the pool to draw from is far too slim, but I do believe that would be the reality we would be living in if they do lose to Tennessee in the first round of the college football playoff. And far be it for me to say this, but let's say it's just even unimpressive and lackluster and they come out flat. So that's one part of this. But let's go ahead and go back to the topic at hand here. The revenge arc for Ohio State, the potential of that. In a sick, twisted, just borderline sadistic way, this might be the path that Ohio State fans wanted and maybe needed if you're Ohio State to kind of hit a reset on the optics. Because if Ohio State were to be fortunate enough to find themselves in Penn State seating and say, hey, Ohio State, good news and bad news. Bad news, you're not the Big Ten champs. Good news, though, you play SMU in round 1. Weren't they a G5 school a year ago? Yep, you got them in the first round. Okay, cool. Who do we have next? You actually have a literal G5 team in Boise State. Okay, cool. Let's roll. I mean, rosters aren't everything, but we feel pretty good about our roster versus those rosters. If that were to be your reality, and you win both those games, how hollow would that feel? I don't think anybody in Columbus, Ohio, if they go out and do that with that path, is saying, okay, you know what, Ryan Day, we forgive you 2 playoff wins. That's good with us. And let's say they go win the national championship. I'm sure it feels good. I'm sure that doesn't feel hollow, but you do go back to the path and you're they kind of caught a break here. The stars kind of aligned for Ryan Day. Now, again, that is not the stars that have aligned for them. They have, again, what I just mentioned. They got to play Tennessee in the first round, potentially Oregon, and then potentially Texas, depending on how things break. So it's not a situation that is necessarily catering to an easy path for Ohio State. But going back to what I just said, if you're the most diehard, twisted Ohio State fan that is anti-Ryan Day, wouldn't you want to see him go up against the most difficult competition in the sport to win the whole darn thing? Don't you want to see the toughest test, the road of most resistance to feel better about Ryan Day? Because if you go out and do that, if you go out and beat who I just said you would have to beat in Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and then likely, I suppose, eventually Georgia in the national championship from that side of the bracket, if we're taking the highest seed, I think that might be actually exactly what you need to boost the approval rating at Ohio State for Ryan Day. And this isn't me saying they somehow excuse the fact that they lost to Michigan now 4 years in a row. I'm not saying that. But I do think you look at the path, you look at what he did as a team, and as Ryan Day to get his team ready to go run the gauntlet there, you're like, okay, we're good. Like maybe we're not 100% okay with everything that happened against Michigan. Like we're still not cool with that. But let's go ahead and call it even for now. I think that would be the way that you would feel if you're an Ohio State fan. Again, not excusing it, but you do look at what he had to go through. You're like, all right, that's good enough for us. There's a book that I love that I've plugged a few times on the show. I'll do it one more time. It's called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Not Ryan Day, Ryan Holiday. I don't know if they're related, but I would venture to say no. The book is essentially about your greatest obstacles being the reason why you're successful. If Ryan Day does what I just said, runs that gauntlet, and wins the national championship, that would be, I think, the reason why you would feel differently about Ryan Day in Columbus. And I'll take it a step further. That would be, I think, the most legitimate national championship in history if Ohio State does that. Not just from the sheer number of games, but from the sheer, just talent they have to play against when it comes to the opponent level. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out. But if Ohio State does run the gauntlet, like I've said now 3 or 4 times throughout this segment, it's game, set, match. There's no more objection you can have to Ryan Day. At that point, it accentuates the Michigan problem. You probably are like, well, how the heck did we lose to that Michigan team that was down this year and is playing, I think, in like the ReliaQuest Bowl? I don't know how that happened. But you're like, okay, we're not crazy for thinking that this was a guy that could go win a national championship with this roster. It legitimizes everything, legitimizes the national championship in itself if they get it done. But don't get it twisted. There is no safety net for Ohio State here these first couple of rounds. Incredible storylines there heading into that one as they welcome the Vols to the shoe.